Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. For the first time since the dawn of the internet, we are experiencing a technology breakthrough so huge it will change everything. That technology can be broken down into one word: Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the poster boy of this technological revolution called blockchain. Now, the problem is there are so many distortions, lies, scams, frauds, misperceptions about Bitcoin and blockchain and crypto that trustworthy information is hard to find. Even worse, there are lots of bad actors in this industry spreading misinformation to push their own agendas. Now, this really gets under my skin. I think everybody should understand what this technology is so they can prepare for a world where it exists all around us. That's why I put together this presentation to explain Bitcoin and blockchain in a way that everyday people can understand. So let's break this down. Today, A, I'm going to describe what Bitcoin is. B, I'm going to describe what blockchain is. And C, I'm going to explain why it exists, what problems it solves, and explain what's happening in this space so you can start to keep up with this exploding industry. Let's take it down a notch. What is money? It's important to understand how it fits in to the entire 10,000-year history of money, and really how it fits in with the evolution of every single industry that we're starting to see. And what we'll begin to see is that every innovation in the history of money solves the problems of the type of money we had before. So first, history of money. How did money start? If I needed some food, and I was making the shoes in my little village, I could trade a pair of shoes for some rice. And this is bartering. Now, I'm oversimplifying how bartering occurred 10,000 years ago, but this is the very rough idea. But there's all sorts of problems with bartering. What if I only need some food? Do I trade half a pair of shoes? Or what if I had to move? What if my village was attacked and everyone has to move? Do I carry all my bags of rice with me? That would be too heavy. I suddenly have to start from scratch. So there was no way to store money. Let's take it even a step back further. What is money? First, money is a store of value. We use it to keep track of how much value we have or how much we are worth. So we're able to store all the value we've worked hard for in this form of this thing called money. The other thing money is good for is as a medium of exchange. Put simply, we use it to buy and sell things. So bartering quickly got replaced by coins. People started using coins made from rare metals. Because these metals are rare, they are hard to mine and therefore good to use as a store of value. And then how would you avoid problems like forgery? Well, it depends what face was carved into the coin, and you could also measure the weight of the coin. So many ounces of gold equaled a certain amount of value. So precious metals and coins became the form of money for several thousand years. But again, there still was a lot of problems with this. One is, what if one country was able to mine a lot of gold? There was a lot of gold underneath the ground, and another country, there was no gold. So then the second country would have to go to war with the first country to get some gold. So what was the result of this? Well, you had Europe sending quote-unquote explorers over to North America and essentially wiping out every single kingdom in North America in order to get the gold. So what happened then? Does gold really solve all your problems? Not really, because gold was often forged. Gold was hard to store. It's like if you accumulated great wealth, what were you going to do? Store all of your gold in one massive castle if you were incredibly wealthy? Well, some people did do that. How would you pay somebody in gold? If I had to buy something in China and I'm sitting in the US, what am I going to do? Send a gold bar to China and hope that they don't open it up in the mail and steal it from me? And there's all sorts of ways in which my gold could be messed with if I'm paying with a lot of precious metals for some item. So precious metals basically didn't work. So what happened? Well, countries like the United States, as an example, but every country started to replace precious metals for their coins with paper money. So in the United States, we replaced precious coins with dollar bills. And I'm taking a look right now at the $1 bill. $1 bill almost makes it seem like this fake contract. Like we've got George Washington staring at us. And, there's all this mythology about George Washington never lying. So we've got to trust the $1 bill. Their signatures are here like it's a contract. On the back of the dollar bill, there's an eagle. And then there's "In God We Trust." So, hey, we've got to trust one or the other. But originally, you could go to the Federal Reserve in the United States and exchange this dollar bill for $1's worth of gold. But that also had a lot of problems. One problem is it's really easy to forge paper money. Another problem with money is that it used to be backed by gold. So for every dollar in circulation, there was at least $1 worth of gold stored in a safe somewhere, maybe Fort Knox, to back that dollar's value. But the problem is the United States started to spend a bunch of money on all sorts of things. One is they went to war in Vietnam for absolutely no reason at all and spent hundreds of billions, maybe, trillions of dollars in today's money on a war with no purpose at all. And they didn't have enough gold to pay for it. And then under Lyndon Johnson, he also just started all of these so-called Great Society with all these social improvement programs like, welfare and Medicare and so on. He was making commitments he simply did not have the money to pay for. So what Nixon did was solve that problem by saying, look, I guess we don't need gold anymore for this paper money, and you're just going to have to trust that paper money is good because the United States is good, and period. That's it. But is paper money really trustworthy? Now, before I explain Bitcoin, I need to first explain the underlying technology, blockchain. Every Bitcoin has associated with it what's called a blockchain. Here's what a blockchain is. It's simply a list of all the transactions that ever occurred. So when I send money to Joe, and Joe sends money to Mary, and Mary sends money to Dave, and Dave sends money to Ellen, all of those transactions are stored on the blockchain, and the entire list keeps growing and growing. So eventually parts of the list are put on this network of computers that are spread all over the world in every single country. No one knows where they are. It's all what's called decentralized. And it's through this network of computers that we could then validate that a transaction is real. Because the way the blockchain works is that Mary can't send money to Ellen unless the blockchain says Mary at some point got the money. So what this means is, thanks to the blockchain, there is a record of every single Bitcoin transaction ever made. We can track every single piece of Bitcoin all the way back to 2009 when the very first Bitcoin transaction took place. Can I change the blockchain on my Bitcoin to look like I have a lot of money? The answer is no, because when I send money to Joe, all these computers from all over the world are checking all the transactions all the way back to the very first one. If there's an error while the computers are checking their own versions of the blockchain and the blockchain I just sent to them, then the transaction won't go through. So this prevents any kind of double spending, forgery, stealing, and so on. Okay, let's back up a second. Without blockchain technology, we rely on banks to do all of this work. Banks have middlemen take their cut, middlemen often have middlemen, and you end up losing money. Now the blockchain cuts out all the unnecessary steps, making transactions cheaper, faster, and less complicated, and less prone to human error. Now, are you starting to see why this whole blockchain technology is a big deal? Okay, now that I've explained how blockchain technology works, let's take a closer look at Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin is the granddaddy of all digital currencies. Bitcoin is not just this crazy investment scheme. Data-backed currencies solve the problems caused by paper money. Bitcoin can't be forged. You can't double spend Bitcoin. I can't spend my Bitcoin in one store and then go across the street and spend it in another store. Bitcoin and many cryptocurrencies have a fixed supply. Maximum, there will be 21 million coins, quote unquote, minted. This means no one could go out and just print new Bitcoin without your permission. When you buy a Bitcoin, you know exactly how many Bitcoins will exist between now and the end of time. 21 million. That number will never change. Now, with the US dollar, there's not a fixed supply. With the euro, there's not a fixed supply. With the yen, there's not a fixed supply. When the central banks print more money, this causes inflation. We rely on our governments to manage this printing responsibly, but unfortunately, this doesn't always happen and can cause what's called hyperinflation. There's all sorts of examples ranging from Venezuela in 2016, Greece in 2013, Argentina over the decades, Russia in 1997, all of Asia in the 90s, all of South America in the 80s, and most famously, Germany in the 1920s. I mean, inflation in Venezuela was up 250% in 2016. People were standing on lines with carts of Venezuelan money, and while they were standing on line, the money was even getting cheaper in value. So hyperinflation is a critical problem that many governments and countries have and many currencies have. So that's an important thing, to know that when you buy Bitcoin, there's not going to suddenly be 1 trillion more Bitcoins printed, making the Bitcoin in your pocket that you just spent your hard-earned money for worthless. One other thing I want to explain that's really important about Bitcoin. So I just gave you the point of view from the history of money, but now I want to look at how every single industry in the world has evolved and why money also is evolving. Money has to evolve, just like every single industry has to evolve. Medicine. If you were sick 1,000 years ago, here's what you would do. First off, you would assume maybe you committed some kind of sin or you had bad karma or whatever, and that's why you were sick. You would blame it on the gods. So that was medicine 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Several hundred years ago, we started to develop the kind of science of medicine. If you got sick, instead of going to your priest, you would now go to your doctor. You would go to your doctor and say, I keep having a fever and a rash and whatever. And the doctor then might put leeches on you and leach all your blood out. And the human medicine had so many errors. It keeps changing. Every 3 years, everything you thought was the right way to be healthy turns out to be the exact opposite. So medicine as run by humans is constantly changing. But now when you're sick, what do? You go to the doctor, but the doctor says, hey, I don't know what's wrong with you. Let's do a bunch of tests. And you get an MRI, an EKG, an EEG. They do all this blood work. Then your doctor gets back your lab results. And essentially the data is what tells the doctor what you might be sick from. And the data will, more often than not, recommend a solution. Even surgeries now are being accomplished by robots. So we've gone from theism, a belief that a higher power will solve our problems, to humanism, a belief that a human will solve our problems, to dataism, a belief and trust that the best way to solve our health problems is through data. Okay, let's take a look at another example. War. So war, 1,000 years ago, 2 countries would go to war. What would they do the day before the war? They would have a huge sacrifice and they would pray to their gods. And whoever god was the strongest, that would determine who would win the war. A couple hundred years ago, it was more about humanism. Whoever had more humans on the ground and more bullets and more weapons, that's who would win the war. But now, war is fought every single day on the battleground of dataism. Every single day, all of computers everywhere, all over the world, are constantly being attacked. Again, theism, a belief that the stronger God will win the war. Humanism, however many humans you have on the ground, that will win the war. Dataism, that's how right now every war is actually being fought. Education. First, we would get all our education from, again, religious studies. The shaman would tell us why the weather is this way, or why people die, or what happens when people die. And then this would be our entire education. Then we went to, around the Renaissance, we went from theism to humanism. So we went to universities and we learned the beginnings of science and math and philosophy and the arts and literature and so on. And now we're going more and more to dataism. For one thing, so many thousands of courses are online and are essentially your progress is tracked in a data-driven way as opposed to a professor deciding if you're good or bad. And not only that, what you need to learn next and the types of courses that are designed specifically for you are often driven by artificial intelligence. So again, no professors in the middle, but artificial intelligence might decide, oh, James needs to know a little bit more about this. He's good at this. Let's build this course for him. So even education is going from theism to humanism to dataism. Bitcoin isn't the only digital currency. As a matter of fact, I would say there is about $200 billion worth of legitimate digital currencies right now. And why do I say legitimate? There are many other digital coins other than Bitcoin. You might have heard of Ethereum. You might have heard of Litecoin. There's over 1,000 different digital currencies. The big question is, why do we need more than one coin? Why can't we just have Bitcoin? Well, the same question could be asked about paper dollars. Why are there US dollars and why are there Canadian dollars and why are there Mexican pesos? Why couldn't it all be just one big currency? The answer is, with paper money, we have what's called geographic borders. The US is different than Canada, just sort of for arbitrary geographic reasons. And so we have Canadian dollars and we have US dollars. And then we have a border with Mexico. So we have Mexican pesos and American dollars. So it's just arbitrary, those borders. But with cryptocurrencies, there are what I call problem borders. So Bitcoin has some problems also. For instance, Bitcoin focuses a lot on privacy, but there are still some privacy issues. So coins like Zcash or Monero, for instance, solve some of these problems, and a problem border exists that creates a new cryptocurrency. In this case, a privacy border. There might be other types of crypto borders, like or crypto problems, like, for instance, a problem of speed of transaction or a problem of using Bitcoin for more legal purposes. All of these problem borders create new cryptocurrencies. But most of those cryptocurrencies are either total scams or they're worthless. There will be a flush of all of those currencies. Knowing the legit currencies will create a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. You see, right now, the global market value of paper money is $200 trillion, but the global market cap of cryptocurrency is only $200 billion. I believe over the long run, cryptocurrency will, in fact, overtake paper money and reach $200 trillion in global market cap. Bitcoin and these other digital currencies will slowly overtake paper money as they solve more and more of the problems of paper money. That's how we will go from 200 billion in supply to 200 trillion in demand, which is why I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, you see all the problems that Bitcoin solves and that blockchain solves. You see that Bitcoin is backed by thousands of years of science, and we know that changes are coming, which is going to help Bitcoin eventually replace paper money. And once it does, all we're going to see at that point is the price going straight up. And so I'm cautioning people to be aware of the scams and the frauds, but know that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is definitely in the future. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope this presentation was helpful. If you enjoyed this presentation, please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to read more of my content, head on over to my blog at jamesaltucher.com.